Okay, hello, my friends. It is Thursday, February 20th, 2025, and here's the daily brief. There are 1,190 Russians off the battlefield. Again, it's been fairly low numbers over February, and if we look at the chart, we see in February, average is 1,292. It's just something's going on that's causing that to happen. 14 tanks off the battlefield, 14 armored fighting vehicles, 63 artillery systems, and 6 air defense systems. I've started highlighting this recently because the number has been increasing, and in 136 vehicles and fuel tanks. It's been lower casualties and higher equipment losses with vehicles and fuel tanks most of February. It's been really interesting to watch. When I went to sleep last night, the last thing that I saw before I was going to bed was Russia is attacking Kyiv right now. Powerful explosions are shaking the capital. Authorities report air defense action. We see this again. All but 2 regions of Ukraine and the city of Kyiv are in a state of alert as Russian T continue massive aerial assault. Western powers refuse to shelter the skies, provide adequate air defense, or give Ukrainian defenders the means to destroy Russian air bases. That is true. I mean, that commentary is right. I mean, they've just not provided enough to be able to hold this off. Okay, at night, Ukraine destroyed 158 of 161 Shahed drones, 80 shot down, 78 suppressed electronically. But it wasn't just the drones. It was also like guided bombs and things along those lines. Missiles, that sort of thing. Another confirmation of Russia's peace plan. Last night, Russia launched another massive missile and drone attack. Ukraine's gas infrastructure, damaging production facilities. Ministry of Energy confirms the goal of these attacks is to halt gas extraction for civilians. Experts are assessing the damage. Okay, now this comes on the heels of Lavrov saying things like we don't attack energy infrastructure. We don't attack that kind of thing. Okay, so that's why this is important to point out. And it started with another confirmation of Russia's peace plan. Well, that's not entirely fair. Russia didn't say it wasn't going to keep attacking or that it was going to stop doing this in the process. But I mean, it's just showing you what they're doing. Okay, for the second night in a row, Russian T are conducting an aerial attack on a historic city of Odessa. Targeting civilians is a war crime, and it's the essential character of the Russian T state, with war which is at war with Western civilization. I think that's fair. They're just going to keep coming until they're stopped. Here's another example of that. Russians have expanded their human safari, according to Jay in Kyiv. Tactics not just to Kherson, but to Zaporizhzhia, targeting individual civilians going about their lives. Trying to, here's an ambulance. There's really no real rationale for something like this. They should be off limits, but that's not the way that they proceed. Just to give you an illustration of how this works, where Russia goes, destruction follows. And I was talking to someone the other day who was telling me that he's afraid that the Russians will not make any concessions because the Russians can't give anything back, because what you're going to find behind those 4 closed oblasts is going to be nothing but destruction or atrocities against Ukrainians. And I'm afraid he might be right. This is what Donetsk in the Donetsk region looks like. This is the before and after. I just put the still. It was a video. I just put the still so you can see the after effects. And yeah, I mean, that's where we are. Russian Air Force dropped a glide bomb on an apartment in the southern city of Kherson overnight, killing 4. Injuring 4, including 2 children. Russian air bombs destroyed entrance of a multi-story building. This is the same thing. People are still being searched under the rubble. Russian troops dropped 3 air bombs on a central part of Kherson last night. One of them hit a residential 9-story building, completely destroying one of the entrances. Again, hitting the residential building nowhere near anything military is a war crime. 6 people were injured, including 2 children, and those are twins. Again, it's just wanton destruction. Here's another shot of the damage, and that's where we are. Okay. Meanwhile, Ukraine is striking back. The building of the Institute of Precision Computer Engineering caught fire in Moscow. The fire has already covered an area of 1,500 square meters. The roof and walls of the Institute have collapsed. Institute contributes to the war against Ukraine. And there you see some billowing smoke near, on the building. Let's turn our attention to the front line and see what's going on the front lines. Ukrainian forces recently advanced near Vovchansk and Donetsk. Both of these cities are villages or whatever were in Russian hands, and they're moving back toward it. Russian forces recently advanced near Borova, Seversk, Pokrovsk, Kharkiv, Vilka, Novosilka. Okay, so the Russians are on the move, but they're on the move pretty slowly compared to where they were. Again, I'm using Pokrovsk as a barometer, and it's really interesting how when you see something like this with the low casualty figures at 1190, you're simultaneously seeing this with only 26 assaults on Pokrovsk. And when this goes up, when the casualty numbers go up to something like 1,300 or so, you'll see something like 35 or 40 Russian assaults on Pokrovsk. So there's a really interesting correlation here. TASS writes that according to Brazilian President Lula, this is just some international news now. According to Brazilian President Lula da Silva, German Chancellor Scholz attempted to buy weapons for Ukraine from Brazil. But Lula emphasized Brazil will not sell arms to countries seeking to kill Russian citizens. We remain neutral. Well, okay, this is being carried by TASS. They're highlighting how, Lula is kind of awesome because he's not going to be doing what the West is doing. And, Brazil is one of the BRICS and so on and so forth. Okay, I'm not showing drones today, but I am showing a Ukrainian Mi-24V Hind helicopter gunship. It's called a Shahed Hunter. Okay, Czech supplied Hinds now in Ukrainian service with dozens of air-to-air drone kills. So that's one way of shooting them down. Another way is to shoot them down from the ground. That's hard. Another way is electronic warfare means. But that seems like a pretty tough task to be up there while those drones are flying to shoot those down. Okay, today we honor the memory of heroes of the Heavenly Hundred. If you don't know what the Heavenly Hundred is, it goes back to the Maidan Revolution. 11 years ago, Ukrainians took to the Maidan to defend freedom, dignity, and Ukraine's European future. They rose against injustice and changed the course of history. And they rose up because there was going to be, let me just read this. It was on these days in 2014 that Russia chose war, according to Zelensky. The president honored the memory of the heroes of the Heavenly Hundred and recalled that it was at this time, 10 years ago, that Putin dealt a vile blow by starting the occupation of Crimea, while in Kyiv, people were defending their freedom. So they're on the square in Maidan, and they're rising up to protest against a president who who shouldn't have been making the kinds of deals and leaning the way he was. So Russia was happy to have a president in Ukraine who is leaning toward Russia. But when a president leaning away from Russia, well, that's a bad thing. And when people rose up against this president, and that president ultimately fled, when people rose up on the Maidan Square, the Ukrainians had pretty hard tactics to put him down, including shooting some of their own people, which was certainly approved of from Moscow. And then shortly after the Maidan, when the president fled, it was little green men invading in the east and in Crimea. Since then, the world has been living in a new reality when Russia is trying to deceive everyone. And it's very important not to give in. To be together, it's important to support those who defend freedom, said the president of Ukraine. Today, Ukraine observes the Day of Remembrance of the Heroes of the Heavenly Hundred. 11 years ago, a turning point in the Revolution of Dignity took place. Mass shootings of protesters occurred, resulting in the deaths of 107 Ukrainians. Okay, so that was the day that changed history, at least for Ukraine and potentially for the world. I hope Michael McKay is wrong about this. I really do. 11 years ago today, the Maidan massacre invaded Ukraine. Russia instigated the Maidan massacre. They invaded Ukraine and Crimea and started World War III. And I hope he's wrong about that, but it does kind of feel like that. Okay, That's all that I have for you right now, my friends. Darth Putin will leave with this. I might as well tell Donald to send U.S. troops to help me get Ukraine out of Kursk. I mean, it's funny, but it's so sad simultaneously. All right, my friends, that's all. Thank you for the time, the likes, the shares, the subscribes, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.